Let's begin with Madeline Rivera live from Washington with the latest on when we can expect this shutdown to officially end. Maddie, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. Well, the vote the Senate took overnight is the first step in a series of procedural maneuvers. And of course, the House will have to vote on the package, too. So it will take a few more days before the government reopens. But Sunday's vote was the first clear sign that a bipartisan deal had been reached after a roughly 40-day stalemate. The Senate voted 60-40 to back a revamped GOP funding bill that would keep the government open until the end of January. 8 Democrats joined Republicans to pass the bill, including Senate Minority Whip Dick Durbin, Senators Tim Kaine, Catherine Cortez Masto, and Jackie Rosen, among others.
This is the beginning to show and fight for Americans across the country. Let me just say this. With the government open, we can focus on passing a full bipartisan budget for 2026.
I understand that not all of my Democratic colleagues are satisfied with this agreement, but waiting another week or another month wouldn't deliver a better outcome. So let me be clear. No one in the Senate chamber wants to extend the ACA tax credits more than I do.
I joined this group to make sure that we could get important protections for federal employees. And what we have in this bill is the restoration of all the furloughed employees and a guarantee of their back pay.
So despite them touting what they did get, these Dems are facing criticism from their party because the package does not include a deal on Obamacare subsidies. It only includes a guarantee on a vote for the tax credits, far from what progressives and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had pushed for.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. We got a lot of work to do, but to be honest with you, tonight was not a good night.
Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna is already targeting Schumer, saying Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop health care premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for? Moving forward, senators need to reach a time agreement before holding a final vote on the package. Then it will only need a simple majority to pass the upper chamber. Todd.
Miles to go before we sleep. Maddie, thank you. With that, let us bring in former advisor to Donald Trump, Jason Miller. And Jason, you heard in Maddie's report the Democrats touting all of the things that they got. But to me, they didn't really get anything. All they got was a promise to hold a vote on Obamacare subsidies. So, Jason, what was the point of all this?
Well, exactly. There was no point. This entire shutdown was unnecessary. It was unneeded. And the only reason why it happened is because Senator Chuck Schumer and other Senate Democrats are scared to death of the extremist wing of their party, the AOCs, and they're worried they're going to get primary challenges. I really think that there's going to be a reckoning here, both from Americans, travelers who were stranded at airports or had flights canceled, members of the military who had to stand in line for food banks because they didn't have money coming in because of what the Senate Democrats did. And also, I think there'll be a reckoning, as we saw from Ro Khanna saying this about Senator Schumer, from the extremist left within the Democrat base saying, Chuck Schumer, why did you cave? So this was completely unnecessary. It was unneeded all along. Senator John Thune said, just simply pass the continuing resolution, open government, then we could talk about health care. But instead, Chuck Schumer decided to hold everybody hostage.
Again, the exact same continuing resolution that everybody voted for back in March. Nothing changed except for the primaries from the left that you just mentioned. For the rest of this week, Senate Democrats can really do this the easy way, or they can do this the hard way. They can fast track the process to get this to the House quickly, or they can force it to just drag on all week long. Which path do you think the Democrats in the Senate will choose?
I think even though many of the Senate Democrats will echo the thoughts of Bernie Sanders saying that they didn't like this vote, I think the reality is that the vast majority, the biggest group of Senate Democrats, are glad that some of their colleagues caved because this is what everybody wanted. There was no one at home who was saying, Senators, thank you for keeping the government shut down. This was massive chaos. We saw what it did to the markets. We saw from Secretary Bessent saying the impact that this has had on the economy. And Americans want to get going with life. And we don't want to be held up and held hostage by nonsense political games.
Even though Schumer voted no, the knives are out. Progressives are turning him into the scapegoat for a deal that doesn't lock in any guarantee on Obamacare subsidies. Lawmakers like Seth Moulton and Ro Khanna are calling for Schumer to be replaced. Others airing out their grievances with the bipartisan deal.
Oh, I think this whole thing stinks. And I think most members of the House caucus on the Democratic side are absolutely outraged.
We'll continue that fight today, tomorrow, this week, next week, this month, next month, this year, next year.
What this Senate is about to do is make a horrific situation even worse.
There's no way to defend this. And you are right to be angry about it. I'm angry about it.
And some folks in the liberal media want to see Schumer go.
The president is kind of getting what he wanted. It doesn't feel like a gentleman's agreement. It feels like Lucy and the football.
Now you're going to open the government up, and what did you get in return?
Right.
Nothing?
Right.
Nothing? This is the end of Chuck Schumer as we go forward.
I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over. If he cannot keep his caucus together, he needs to go. He needs to be replaced.
All right, we've got to have a great discussion. Kellyanne, on the day that this began, I said, we know how this is going to end. It will end with the Democrats having to cave because they don't have the votes. And in the end, it does. But Schumer walked himself into this situation. And now, do you think he'll have to go?
Probably. So you were correct on day one. You knew how it was going to end. The question was always, when would it end? And it ended almost 40 days later with the exact deal that the Republicans offered 35 days before and were rejected by the Democrats. There's no way to spin it. They caved, they capitulated, they should claim strategic bankruptcy. This is a party bereft of leadership, of vision, of ideas. And Chuck Schumer's had a terrible week. This was just the capper. And then, of course, he's made nobody happy. The so-called moderates, the 8 aren't happy. The progressives aren't happy. And I think if you're Schumer, you also have to realize that this did nothing for the party's identity crisis of which he is in the center. Because if the entire strategy is get Trump, he just got you. He played you completely. Dana, what I don't understand is the Democrats wanted to die on this hill. It's always the hill for illegal immigrants. First, you lied that the border was secure, and you let in millions and millions and millions of them. They got all kinds of benefits the rest of us can't get. Then you stood there and said, we're going to stop lawful deportations of unlawful people. And now you said we're going to shut down the government to make sure that they get Obamacare subsidies and premiums. And they got absolutely nothing out of it except a headache. If you're Chuck Schumer, you've got to realize this party elected people last week in blue states who never invited Chuck Schumer or Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton to campaign with them. It's a party at odds with themselves. They picked the wrong fight. And I think after 14 CRs going for Joe Biden, they can't turn around and do the same thing for the president. If you're upset, everybody, if you're upset because your flight was canceled, because somebody didn't get a check, you don't know if you're going to get back pay, you only have one party to blame, and it's the Democrats.
Greg, 40 days and 40 nights, and this is what we got.
Gee whiz. I wish we just had a fast forward control from, because everybody knew how this was going to go. And the left is freaking out about this. If you go on Blue Sky, they're screaming about Schumer. Whose fault is this? Who made this mess? You guys made this mess because we knew how this was going to end. This is just like the present day border hysteria. They destroyed the border. Trump gets elected and fixes it, and then they blame him for the fix. It's just like the shutdown. The Republican side seems so easily understood. Here's the budget. Let's go. The other side says, no, we won't. And even though we're not signing on, you're the one at fault, and people are going to starve. Okay. Then the government opens up, and what do they say? No, you caved, Schumer. You caved. Oh, my God, what are you doing? So wait a second. Who controlled the shutdown again? Because now you're mad that Schumer caved. So apparently he had the finger on the button the whole time. And now you're saying don't cave. I guess that means the starving people never really were starving to begin with. Right. We knew that. But we play along because we knew how this was going to end. We just don't have the fast forward control to make it happen. Why do the Dems look so stupid? Not you, Jessica. They live on the surface level of politics, no depth, no nuance. If the Republicans are for X, we have to be Y. They don't understand that this is dead. For the past 10 years, this is totally, this whole kind of prison of two ideas, it's not working anymore for the American people. What's missing is persuasion. They did not do any persuasion. They did not try to convince anybody why they were right. And maybe it's because they don't have any examples of why they should be right, or maybe they don't have the muscles anymore. And that the Trump derangement, which then became Trump addiction, which is now, as we'll see in the C block, Trump estrangement, they did not build any of the muscles. They didn't preserve any of the muscles of persuasion. You can think, I'm trying to think, there's only one person that is, I mean, sadly for the Democrats, it's Mom Dommy's the only one that might be persuasive. But the Democrats, it's funny, why do they want health care now? Because they can't talk about crime and they can't talk about immigration. They can't even talk about the economy. So remember, if it's about the extension of an ACA subsidy, I hate to tell you, that's going to be really easy to fix. You just say, all right, we'll delay it three months. You want a year, we'll do 6 months. It's that simple. That issue's over. Then what are you going to do? I just came up with that.
My only point I would like to make is that unity beats disunity every single time. And Trump, Thune, and Johnson showed that they can stay together, and they hung tight. And so they are the winners in this.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.